have there been threats against you? You're one of the most prominent Sikh Canadians in this country. It would be notable if there have been.
Things are crazy here in Canada. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. In today's top stories, we've got updates on the situation coming out of India. Their diplomats were pulled from Canada, Canadian diplomats pulled from India, all sorts of reports of the Indian diplomats being involved in bad things happening in Canada. So we've got an update on some more details. We've also got an interview here with Jagmeet Singh. Jagmeet has a press conference and he has asked over and over and over if he's being targeted. So let's jump into it. First off, we got an update here, a few more details on CBC.
David, let's talk timing here. Why did the RCMP and the federal government take action right now?
Well, Adrian, what's driving this was what Mike Duhem, the commissioner, talked about, that significant threat to public safety, that in spite of the Prime Minister's allegations of India's involvement a year ago in September, the arrests made in the Niger killing in May, that the violence just continued and was in fact escalating. More threats, more extortions. There are 13 duty of care warrants active right now. That is when the RCMP gets information that someone's life is imminently in danger. So it just shows how much it had been escalating. So they decided.
We're going to interrupt here for a second. You can see the CBC is pushing the threat to Canadian safety. That's what they're pushing hard right now. This is way too convenient. I mentioned it in my previous video. This is way too convenient considering Justin Trudeau blew this up on Thanksgiving Day in Canada. This is 100% a ploy to distract from the SDTC scandal that's going on. He's probably going to use this as a motion of closure to shut down the request for documents, the SDTC documents, to the RCMP. He's been sitting on this for a while as his little get out of jail free card. This didn't happen just yesterday. He made the initial comments over a year ago, and this has been going on for the better part of almost 2 years. We'll keep listening to what the CBC has to say here, the details of this, but they're pushing heavily on Canadian safety in a time when Justin Trudeau needs the biggest distraction of his political career.
Decided to confront India with the evidence they had of the involvement of their diplomats. And Adrian, it led to this extraordinary meeting where the Deputy Minister of Global Affairs, the National Security Advisor to the Prime Minister, and one of the Deputy Commissioners of the RCMP flew all the way to Singapore to present the evidence to Narendra Modi's National Security Advisor. And the evidence was essentially rejected out of hand. It became very clear India wasn't going to stop. It became very clear India wasn't going to cooperate. So they felt in the interest of public safety, they were left with no choice for the police to go public with their warnings and for the federal government to issue the expulsion orders to the Indian diplomats.
And can you walk us through what these 6 diplomats are actually being accused of?
Yeah, so it's the High Commissioner from India to Canada and 5 other diplomats. And essentially, Canada believes that they were involved in collecting intelligence. The pictures of Sikh activists who supported an independent Khalistan, their names, their associates, their pattern of life, their pattern of movements, and then sending that information back to India. Now, they aren't suspected of necessarily contracting the people who are believed to have pulled the trigger in some of these cases, but they were feeding the information that was giving them a menu of options. And the thing that struck me today, Adrian, was the Prime Minister's language. There was no qualification, there was no prevarication. It was just a clear certainty that they believe 100% India was behind this. And that's why they kicked those 6 diplomats out of the country just before 9 o'clock this morning.
What's interesting to note about this, too, is the RCMP came out and actually gave some details. They talked about it. They never talk about stuff. They literally say nothing. They just say, oh, we got ongoing investigation. We can't say anything. They always say that. So the fact that they're able to come out and give some details on this, it seems like they might have got a memo in their inbox that Trudeau needs some help to stir up something to deflect and get Canadians' minds off of the SDTC corruption and scandal going on, $400 million. We are not stupid, Justin Trudeau. Problem is we don't have all of Canada watching the real news here on YouTube. We've got a small slice of the population. Maybe this works to distract the average Canadian who doesn't pay attention to politics all that much. I don't know. I sure hope not, because this is clearly a distract and deflect tactic here. Now, jumping over to this press conference with Jagmeet, he gives a bit more details on this, but what's more interesting is he talks about how it's important that all the leaders not turn this into a partisan situation and they all just get on the same side. Meanwhile, he is essentially taking partisan attacks at Pierre Poilievre the entire time.
That a foreign government is engaging criminal elements in Canada to perpetrate violence against Canadians, including shooting at homes, shooting at Canadians' homes, killing Canadians, shooting at Canadian businesses, shooting at Canadian communities. We saw in the past year an uptake, a serious increase in gun violence. And the RCMP is pointing to the fact that a portion of that, a significant portion, can be attributed to a foreign government hiring criminal elements. This is a threat to anyone that lives in those communities. Anyone that has family in those communities, kids playing in the parks where those homes were shot at or those businesses were shot at. This is serious. I love our country. I love our democracy. I would do anything to protect it. I can't imagine or understand any political leader who wouldn't also do anything to protect our country. And that's why it troubles me deeply that Pierre Poilievre is unwilling to receive security clearance and to fully understand what's going on. I don't want the Indian government, which is who the RCMP has implicated in this, and the Modi government specifically, I don't want the Indian government or Modi to think they've got someone in Canada who's willing to look the other way to ignore what's going on. We need to take an approach where we're all on the same side, that we're all denouncing this serious series of allegations, and that we're standing united to do everything possible to protect Canadians.
Something I just thought about here. So he's saying he hopes there's nobody, it's looking the other way. He's obviously talking about Pierre Poilievre because Poilievre didn't get the security clearance to get all the detailed information. We'll get into this, but something I just thought about, would it be so far-fetched of an idea to think that part of the supply and confidence agreement that Justin Trudeau had with Jagmeet was to dramatically increase immigration from India to Canada? Because who do you think people from India would vote for the most? Now, you might think the Liberals because they brought them over. People come over to a new country, they look for familiarity, and they would be looking at this guy. I don't know why I didn't think of this sooner. This just seems so obvious now. But anyways, just put that on the side there for a minute. But it does seem like a bit of a deal that those guys would make. And we've had massive immigration increase, which is coming almost solely from India over the past couple of years, past 2 years, when the supply and confidence agreement was in place.
That's why my team will be calling for an emergency meeting of the Public Safety Committee to look at other steps we can take to keep Canadians safe. We will also urge Canada to ban the RSS, which is a right-wing extremist militant group from India that has branches in other countries, including in Canada, that promotes violence and division. We'll also urge Canada to impose severe and strict sanctions on Indian diplomats. We need to take every step possible to keep Canadians safe. The RCMP has exposed a very serious threat. And now let's take that threat seriously and act accordingly.
He's pushing the same thing. Serious threat. Serious threat. Let's not think about the SDTC scandal and those documents. No. You got to think Jagmeet's in on it too to help keep propping up Trudeau. That's what this language sounds like. As we go on here, you'll see he keeps attacking Pierre Poilievre. Based on how Jagmeet's talking here, I think he's going to continue to support Justin Trudeau all the way till February. After that, it's anyone's guess. One thing's for sure, though, he had nothing bad to say about Justin Trudeau in this entire press conference. Jumping ahead, all the interviewers just start tossing questions out at him, and they essentially all start asking him the same thing.
What more can you tell us about the briefing you received yesterday?
The briefing confirmed what was shared publicly, that this is a very serious allegation, a series of allegations. It confirmed some of the background of how it got here. But really what it highlighted is that we've got the Indian government, specifically the Modi government, that is engaged through diplomats in Canada, criminal elements that have then gone on to shoot at Canadian homes, to shoot at Canadian businesses, to kill Canadians. And that is very serious. As the RCMP mentioned, the briefing also mentioned that there are deep concerns for Canadian safety. And that's why I really believe it is our responsibility. If we believe in protecting our country, I love this country, we need to do everything possible to keep people safe and to keep our democracy safe. And that's why I'm committed to the actions that I've laid out, additional steps to see what we can do to keep Canadians safe by having an emergency meeting of the Public Safety Committee, as well as making sure that we take steps to ban this extremist organization, the RSS, that comes from India, as well as making sure that we impose these severe sanctions on Indian diplomats.
Are you being targeted?
It's not about me. This is about the fact that Canadians are at serious threat and serious risk. What the RCMP described is something that should be really troubling. When these acts of violence happen, if someone's shooting, if an organized member of crime is being hired or being engaged by a diplomat, which just sounds just incredibly disturbing, if that's happening, that threatens everyone that lives in that community, everyone that lives in that neighborhood. When businesses are being shot at anyone that lives nearby, anyone that's walking nearby. This is a threat to all Canadians, and it should be taken with the utmost seriousness.
So he's asked, are you being targeted? Now, I'm going to break this down a little bit here because I think there's more to this than just a simple question, but he's asked again.
I go back to the question before. Have there been threats against you? You're one of the most prominent Sikh Canadians in this country. It would be notable if there have been.
As I've said before, it's not about me. I really want this to be about the safety and security of Canadians. And what the RCMP laid out is deeply concerning. And just to get an idea, when we see the uptake of violence that we saw in the past year, and there was a serious uptake, people talked to me about that. They felt that there was increased shootings. The fact that a portion of those shootings can be attributed to the fact that a foreign government engaged criminal elements in our country to shoot up Canadian homes, to shoot up Canadian businesses. Like, this puts everyone at risk. This doesn't just put those people targeted. You've got guns, you got bullets flying. That's going to put everyone that lives nearby at risk. And so this is very, very serious. And it goes very deep. The fact that the RCMP's laid out that diplomats from the Indian government were involved in hiring and directing criminal organized crime members in Canada is deeply serious. And it should be taken with the utmost seriousness. And that's why I got to say again, I find it troubling that the only federal leader in our country right now that has not gotten security clearance to hear about foreign interference is Pierre Poilievre. I don't want the Indian government to think that there's one political leader willing to look the other way when this serious level of allegations are being put forward.
So first off, let's just break this down. Pierre Poilievre doesn't get those security clearances, just the same with many of these other scandals, including the 11 traitors we don't know about in our government, because if he's given the information, he can't talk about it. He's then essentially muzzled. He can't say anything. He can't do anything with it aside from know it. What he really wants is it to either be sent out to the press, to the media, or Justin Trudeau, or in this case, Jagmeet Singh, speak out about what is going on so all Canadians can know about it. Now, let's just go back to him being asked, because he gets asked again about whether he's being targeted. He says, don't make it about me. No. Now, why is he doing this? If you think about it both ways, if he says, yes, I'm being targeted, then suddenly it rallies a bunch of support behind him. And maybe it even gets more people past the NDP supporting him. Like, people start feeling patriotic, like, I don't want mind being targeted by India. It rallies support. So that's not the answer. I don't think he was targeted. I think he wasn't targeted. And the reason why is because a Sikh Canadian, the only guy wearing a turban here that is a leader of a party, not being targeted, just goes to show how insignificant and unimportant the guy is. I don't think he was targeted at all. Makes him look weak and unimportant to the world. So what I think he did is when they asked these questions, he said, I don't want to talk about it, because then it puts an ambiguity. It makes people think maybe he was targeted, maybe he is important. This is the only logical answer. Otherwise, he would have just said yes, instantly rallied support of his own base as well as other Canadians. People aren't paying attention to Jagmeet. They don't even care about him. I don't think he was targeted. And just listen here, him ripping into Pierre Poilievre, he doesn't once say Justin Trudeau has failed Canada. He's failed the security of Canadians. Justin Trudeau has allowed this to happen. He doesn't say that once in this entire interview.
That's why I'm urging him to put partisanship aside, get the security clearance, know what's going on. Let's have a united front. Let's be together on the same side against the Modi government, against the Indian government that's putting Canadian lives at risk.
On the issue, that's what he says. He won't get the clearance because he wants to be able to speak freely. Since you've received the clearance, do you feel hindered at all? Do you feel you're able to speak freely about foreign interference?
Absolutely. I've spoken freely. I've disagreed. After I received the briefing, I disagreed with the finding of the special rapporteur. If folks remember, he came with a certain conclusion. I read the documents in that case, and I came up with a different conclusion.
He's trying to distance himself from the Liberals here because that special rapporteur whole situation was a load of bull crap.
And I rejected what the special rapporteur had said. And so there is no, that's a false allegation. That is a false thing that Mr. Poilievre is saying, that somehow would limit. I've been able to say anything I need to say, that focuses on protecting Canadians, and that should be the priority. A leader should have in their mind the utmost and most important thing is country first, protecting our country, protecting Canadians. I can only think that he's making the decision for partisan reasons. And
this seems very partisan. It seems like he's backing up Trudeau and supporting him and trying to get all of this to be swept under the rug, the SDTC scandal, and using this as a means to do so. And to get him closer to that pension. Let's not forget about his pension. That's really why he's supporting Trudeau here. This whole situation stinks. It absolutely stinks of corruption.
Urging him to put partisanship aside, We've just heard from the RCMP that Canadians are being targeted. Canadians are being shot at. Their homes are being shot at. Their businesses are being shot at. They're being extorted. And it directly is being alleged, is directly being orchestrated by Indian government officials. Knowing that, I can't imagine why anyone who is a leader in our country wouldn't want to get every piece of information possible.
He knows why. It's another personal attack on Poilievre. It's because then he's muzzled. He can't talk about it. Aside from what Jagmeet just said here, what's in the public, you know, the bullets flying through the windows and etc. But he can't actually talk any more about it. If Poilievre learns about this information through other ways, then he can talk about it and blow it up across Canada and expose what is happening in our country under Justin Trudeau. As we continue to listen to him, he doesn't mention Trudeau once and how much of a failure he is.
There's a reason why every other federal leader has agreed to look at those documents, has agreed to get the security clearance. And that's why I'm deeply troubled that Pierre Poilievre wants to be the only federal leader in a time when we have active threats against Canadians, that he wants to be the only leader that doesn't want to look at what's going on. That does send a message to the Indian government that there's one leader that's willing to look away. That to me is deeply troubling.
Yes or no? Yes or no?
It's hard to figure out.
Yes or no, Mr. Singh? Has the RCMP warned you that you are being targeted by India or that there are threats against you? Yes or no? I think Canadians would be interested to know if there is a political leader in Canada being targeted. So I know you don't want to talk about yourself, but has the RCMP warned you?
As I've said, it's not about me. I mean, the RCMP putting forward the seriousness of what they've described yesterday.
It's a no. He's not important. Nobody cares about Jagmeet, not even the Indian government. No one wants to try to find some tactic to use him to get into the government. Like, nobody cares about this guy. He's so unimportant. I don't think he was targeted at all, and he's just trying to stir up some more attention by giving this ambiguous answer.
Today should be enough for us all to be very worried, and talking about myself does not in any way help Canadians to realize what the RCMP talked about, what they've shared, the allegations they put forward, the threats to Canadians, the threat to Canadian lives, the threat to Canadian homes and businesses, the fact that there's extortion going on. This is serious. And I want to focus on the fact that this is a threat to Canada, threat to our democracy, threat to Canadian lives, and that's something we take seriously.
These are the exact same talking points he got from CBC, which I just showed you guys, and Justin Trudeau yesterday talking about this. You know, really, they could have just put out a press release. They could have just sent this information out to all the news media and have them put this out. But for whatever reason, they decided to blow this up with some big press conference. This is not the normal kind of stuff they put on a press conference, let alone on Thanksgiving.
The leader of an opposition party being targeted in a democracy is serious, Mr. Singh.
So he goes into French there, but basically now we've got this boiling over in day after day. This will keep going for a couple of days, and it'll soak up a few days to divert the attention from the SDTC scandal off of Trudeau. We know what's going on here.
Sanctions that you want to put forward, how do you balance that against Canada's economic interests and suggesting severe sanctions when that would have potentially devastating effects in Canada's economy?
I thank you for the opportunity to clarify. I mentioned very severe sanctions on Indian diplomats.
So he's going to go on to ramble here, but basically just says to put sanctions on those diplomats and not on the country itself. What we've got here very much seems like Jagmeet, Trudeau, the CBC, all aligned in the exact same thing. Oh, Canadian security, $400 million STT. We can't even remember what that was. Let's just forget about that. So we'll see here in the next couple of days, does Justin Trudeau come out and say like, oh, we need to introduce some new policy to protect Canadians. We need a motion of closure on all that nonsense, the SDTC nonsense going on in the House of Commons there. We'll just wipe that out and start fresh. That seems very much what their plan is, because they were sitting on this for a while. They only decided to act on it now. As the pieces are falling into place between Trudeau, Jagmeet, RCMP, and the CBC, something stinks here. Something is funny. This doesn't mean India is off the hook. India is already corrupt. We already know that. Being this corrupt, yeah, I don't know if anybody saw that coming, but this situation needs to be handled. But the fact that Justin Trudeau allowed this to happen under his watch to this level is just disgraceful. It's another failure of Justin Trudeau.